So this one's quite interesting. There's been leaks emerging that an Intel Arc A580 is going to be launching soon. I think we heard a while back, Alex, I'm not sure what the sourcing was, that there were actually 3 different types of Arc GPU chip. And so it was inevitable we were going to get some sort of cut down version of the A750, A770. It's called the A580. And it looks as though ASRock and Sparkle are going to be producing versions of that particular card. And I don't know. It brings home to me the concept of the $200 GPU, which we don't really have too many of those these days. There is the RX 6600, which was heavily discounted, which does the job, which is a pretty good GPU, I think. There's also rumours starting to emerge. I'm not sure this is particularly great news, but there's going to apparently be a 6 gigabyte version of the RTX 3050. Here's the thing, right? We've not really seen new graphics cards released at a sub $200 price point that are actually any good.
Anything decent? No, I mean,
that you actually want.
Yeah, I think about like all the weirdo stuff that AMD released last gen at the low end.
Yeah, 6500 XT.
Those are the ones I think of where I like thought like that's not no buy territory, even if you have that money, because it wasn't going to be guaranteeing you necessarily even good experiences on that. But this, I think, it's a nice opening for the future, and it lays the groundwork. I hope the fact that this market will still exist in a competent, competitive, and like worthwhile way. Because obviously we know about price stagnation about everything else for the most part. Most, like performance brackets are staying the same in terms of price. Maybe we'll get some more features there with things like DLSS 3 and now I guess FSR 3 with the Anti-Lag Plus, etc. But it's not the thing that we saw in previous generations. And if this market, if we only have that, but we don't have a low end market, then we have just a general raising of prices everywhere. And we're just bracketing people out of the market of PC gaming, which is not great, unless you just want to keep buying old GPUs. So actually having new GPUs come out and hopefully, like, I don't know what you think about the performance could be like here, because you tested the A750 much more than I don't even own one. You've got one. Like, do you think this is actually a good performance tier though? Because like the A750, I like the A770, but I see all of its faults for sure.
Yeah, the A750 is basically, it's very rare to find a game that performs that much worse than the A770.
Okay.
Certainly to the human eye. I think it actually works fine as a 1440p card with like optimized settings or, not running everything at ultra. So I do think there is a slot for the A580, assuming there's good scalability there versus the A750 that's worth the price, right? Because the A750 has been I think its sticker price is $249 now. So this one's got to be 200 or lower. And I mean, essentially, if you've got a good GPU that's running at 1440p, you should easily get decent scalability for 1080p. It's been a bit weird to me that stuff like 7600 and 4060 they're targeting the 1080p market, but they're actually based on benchmarks that are running everything flat out at ultra. And I do think that there is actually a market there for a less capable GPU that can actually do 1080p with reasonable settings, right? As long as the price is right. Sub 200. I mean, this is kind of what the RX 6600 is doing, the non-XT model, where it's got 8 gigs. It's got a reasonable level of performance. You can even do some 1440p gaming on it, at decent settings. And it's, there's nothing really else in the market that's new that you can buy for that. And the idea that Intel is going to come into this market, and maybe Nvidia too, if they want to sort of nerf the already nerfed 3050 still further, I don't it should be a 3040 or whatever. That's the naming side of things. If they're cutting the memory, that means they're cutting the memory bus, which means they're cutting performance, so it should have a different name. So I'm quite sort of optimistic about the A580, assuming it's real and assuming it comes and the price is good. The A380, of course, Intel has, which is their entry level offering. It's just too anemic. It's just too low power for for modern games. But this could, hit a kind of sweet spot. I do think, though, that if all the benchmarks are going to be at ultra at 1080p, it's probably going to be a bit ho-hum. But, what I've been discovering is, particularly when you look at like Steam Deck and ROG Ally, is that people are actually okay with less than stellar settings if they're getting value, if they're getting a good experience. And, an A580 will obviously outstrip a ROG Ally by a long chalk. It'll be a decent desktop experience at 1080p, I'd hope. Just have to sort of couch expectations there. What do you reckon, John, about this whole GPU market? Actually, I'm reminded when we were at Gamescom, when we spoke to Frank Azor at AMD, he didn't seem too optimistic about the concept of the $200 GPU going forward when I was tackling him about price increases.
I mean, I think it's great that Intel would still be targeting this market. I think Intel has found an interesting niche. I think competing in the high end is difficult. Mid-range, I think they can compete. But this sort of low-end market, like the sort of evaporation of these types of GPUs is it's seriously detrimental to PC gaming as a whole, especially when you look at where stuff like Steam is these days, right? Steam is a gigantic marketplace. There's so many games that target all ranges of hardware. You don't need to be playing the best stuff, but you might still want a modern, somewhat well-featured GPU that can at least play the stuff you'd expect and not have compatibility issues and be affordable. So again, I'm happy that this kind of thing still exists, and I think it needs to. And I'm a little surprised that, at least with AMD, given their track record, they traditionally filled this spot, right? They had a lot of lower priced GPUs that were good. I'm surprised they don't also want to get back into that as well in a more significant fashion. Heck, NVIDIA, sure, like why not? Like this seems like a pretty great place to have at least a reasonable GPU.
I think the difference with Intel is they've got these chips which they've got to sell, and they've got to make an impact in the GPU market across whatever tiers they can, and they're likely going to be losing money. I can't believe that they're making money on the A750 and the A770. Yeah. So I think there is, that's sort of like the sort of pseudo disruption that Intel brings to the market, in that they can actually put out a GPU that's going to lose them money because they're looking to just establish a presence in the graphics space at this point. But yeah, I'm really looking forward to seeing the A580 to see what it can do. And I think it's one of these situations where you can run the benchmarks and it will come out looking pretty, average/poor. But if you actually fire it up and play some games, it will deliver a perfectly decent experience, and it's going to have XSS, right? So that's a performance multiplier as well.
Just got to pray games actually implement it, because
that was again going back to Forza. It had FSR2 and
no
it had
XESS.
DLSS, but no XESS.
Forza Horizon has XESS, so it's like why isn't it in Forza Motorsport?
It is a chin-stroking emoji comment that you made there, Alex.
That's going to be a good thumbnail. Yeah.